Hi, I'm Jesse, and you're watching JLS Comics. Thanks for pressing play. Today we're talking about a character named Shang-Chi. If you follow the news like I do, you've undoubtedly heard the reports that Marvel is developing a solo movie based around this character, Shang-Chi. I've had a few people message me and ask, who is he? Is he like Iron Fist? Are they friends? Who would win in a fight? So let's answer that, and we're going to get right into all of this. Fu Manchu raised Shang-Chi to be an assassin, a master of wushu, and actually the greatest practitioner of kung fu in all of the Marvel universe. He was named by his mother, and Shang-Chi roughly means the rising and advancing of the spirit. His father, of course, Fu Manchu, was the leader of an ancient secret society called the Celestial Order of the Sifan. And Shang-Chi was sent on a mission at one point to kill a man named Dr. Petrie, and he met Sir Dennis Smith, who told him actually that his father, Fu Manchu, is evil. So Shang-Chi escaped, and his father didn't like that, so he sent assassins after his own son to kill him. Sifan, they had many outlandish plans, dastardly deeds. They were so outlandish at times, they wanted to knock the moon out of orbit to make natural disasters. They wanted to use fake UFOs to create mass hysteria. They wanted to kidnap the heads of the League of Nations. They were sort of like Spectre in the Bond series. Shang-Chi spent a considerable amount of time after he escaped wandering New York City and in the countryside of America. At one point, Fu Manchu allied himself with an evil corporate entity known as the Corporation. Shang-Chi teamed up with Iron Fist and White Tiger and a couple others to bring them down. He also helped MI6 take down Carlton Velcro and the Butcher, and continued thwarting Fu Manchu's plots all the while. An interesting story came up in the 1980s where Shang-Chi helped Dark Angel defect from the Soviet Union. Dark Angel is insinuated to be the daughter of Tatiana Romanova, who you may know from the Bond novel From Russia with Love. Toward the end of the Master of Kung Fu title, Shang-Chi apparently kills Fu Manchu, his father, and he then goes on a journey of atonement, settles in a small village in China, and he becomes a fisherman. Thus, he wants to live out the rest of his days in coastal China. Later, MI6 called Shang-Chi back to duty to deal with a supervillain named Ghost that had reinvented a deadly weapon made by Nikola Tesla. Who was Ghost? Fu Manchu, you guessed it. Fu Manchu is back, and in the battle, Shang-Chi's younger brother, who goes by the name Moving Shadow, was killed, and thus Shang-Chi returned to his life off the grid. When the Superhuman Registration Act was signed into law, Shang-Chi joined Misty Knight and Colleen Wing as part of their Heroes for Hire. But let's take a step back to the 1970s. In 1972, Marvel Comics wanted the rights to adapt the David Carradine-led Kung Fu TV series to comic book form, but they were denied by Warner Brothers, who were the owners of their primary rival, the Distinguished Competition. That's right, DC Comics. So to circumvent this derailing of their plans, Marvel bought the comic book rights to Sax Rohmer's pulp villain, Dr. Fu Manchu. Starlin and Englehart created Shang-Chi in 1973. It first appeared in Special Marvel Edition number 15, December of 1973. But many of the other supporting characters are actually from Rohmer's work. And as an aside, Hanoi Shin apparently inspired Fu Manchu, who himself served as inspiration for other overly stereotyped villains like Pai Mei, Lo Pan, Shang Tsung, Dr. No, Dr. Zin, Ming the Merciless, the Mandarin, and even Ra's al Ghul. At the time, martial arts were enjoying a pop culture zenith. Master of Kung Fu was selling as well as Spider-Man and even Conan comic books. This was the same year that Bruce Lee died. Paul Gulacy, artist on issue 18 forward, after Starlin moved on to more cosmic titles, said this: "I felt that Master of Kung Fu was the only outlet for a Bruce Lee type guy. That's how I saw Shang-Chi. It was a continuation of all that stuff. We had the spy motif, martial arts, actors, and parody." So much so, in fact, that there was a rumor that actually was relayed to Paul by someone at Marvel that Bruce Lee's wife, and this is quotes, called Stan Lee and said, "Knock it off." It was Gulacy and Doug Mensch who took over for Starlin and Englehart and really got down into what the characters were, and the ones that we know today. Special Marvel Edition, that title that I mentioned where Shang-Chi debuted, only ran for 16 issues. Shang-Chi took up the last couple issues, except it wasn't the last couple issues. Marvel continued the story with a new title called Master of Kung Fu, and the first issue of that new title was actually issue 17. It is the third appearance of Shang-Chi. The book enjoys one of the longest single creator comic book runs of all time. The Deadly Hands of Kung Fu magazine also debuted at this time, but featured a host of other martial artists from the Marvel Universe, not just Shang-Chi. Oh, and if you're wondering who would win if Shang-Chi went against Iron Fist, it's canon that it would be a stalemate. They're better at being teammates, honestly, as evidenced when they took down Bride of the Nine Spiders during the events of Spider Island. After Avengers vs. X-Men, Tony Stark gave Shang-Chi a pair of bleeding-edge nunchucks that could discharge repulsor blasts. There was also a time when Shang-Chi chased a dragon from Madripoor to Hong Kong, and he actually used Pym particles he borrowed from his Avenger teammate to grow to a massive size, and he defeated the dragon. His final power was gained in Avengers World number 20 and Avengers 38 when Ex-Nihilo's bombs exploded in Kobe, Japan. Shang-Chi had a vision of a dragon and an old man. The old man challenged him with a replica of himself. Shang-Chi, after fighting for a little while, realized that he had to accept his demons instead of fight them, and thus he gained the power to replicate himself. Marvel no longer owns the license for Fu Manchu, so he's really referenced. So Marvel gave his father a revamped backstory. His name is now Zhang Zhu. At some point after the series ended in 1983, Marvel just let the rights for Fu Manchu lapse, the whole universe, but they still retained the rights for Shang-Chi since he was created and fully owned by Marvel. They couldn't use Fu Manchu anymore. They couldn't reproduce or reprint anything for a long time, but in 2015, something happened with Marvel and the Romer estate. They reached an agreement. They were able to do reprints, omnibus, those types of things finally were able to start coming out. In December of 2018, a solo film was announced by Marvel Studios, which will, according to reports, feature an Asian actor in the role. The film will be part of Marvel's Phase 4, along with Black Widow and the Eternals, but this is the second time we've heard rumors. You may remember back in 2005, Marvel announced a deal with Paramount. The original slate was intended to be 10 films, all shared together. They raised some capital, just over $500 million. You had Captain America, Avengers, Nick Fury, Black Panther, Ant-Man, Cloak and Dagger, Doctor Strange, Hawkeye, Power Pack, and of course Shang-Chi. But in 2012, when Disney bought Marvel, Disney bought out the rest of the contract. So once this movie lands, we'll have seen all of these original 10 realized, except for Power Pack, but that's for another video. So anyway, that's the origin and the history of Shang-Chi. Whether we see him on screen in Spider-Man or Far From Home, I'm looking at you, Remy High, or his David Callahan written solo outing, you are now prepared with the backstory and familiarity of the character. If you have any additional questions, something I missed, go ahead and leave that down in the comments. And thanks again for watching, subscribing, and I will see you in the next video.